Yeah, so trauma bonding is the doing of all of this in all the ways that actually creates more codependency in a way that's not consensual, not in the purest sense of the word, where two people are entering with full choice in the matter. And it's difficult because, you know, I think many people here on the group will recognize this, where they get into a relationship and later on they realize, as they become more secure, they realize why they got into the relationship, and now they're kind of like, wow, I'm stuck now. I got into this and I made some commitments, or I'm married, or I've got kids, or whatever it is that we have a house or we have a business together. How do you grow within the constraints of the relationship, which were created under different different implicit agreements that came from trauma bonding often?
Yeah, I think what comes up right now is, on the path to sovereignty, we learn to consent to different things. We basically
Better.
we own our consent more, because
Yes.
a traumatized person is a person who consents to a bunch of things unconsciously, right?
Yeah, or they never had a choice, and so that's a template.
Yeah, so it's an unconscious form of consent, you know, to go into victim role with someone, or to go into savior role and to deplete all of one's energy is not conscious consent.
Right.
I wonder,
Right.
perpetration is interesting, right?
Yeah. Well, I think this is a tricky one to address. And you know, I think it's been tricky in the past to try to address it in a group like this, because we have such a wide range of people engaging with at different levels of awareness. And you know, and for lack of a better ways to put this, you know, perpetrators are creating a hell of a lot of damage in society, and so it's very difficult for redemption, for any level of redemption or recovery from that, especially considering that a lot of people who are in a perpetrator position or perceived as such have come from a place of being victimized in the past at some level.
I was actually
So yeah,
my friend yesterday, and I was telling her, you know, after we had, you know, finalized the process with her, and we were back. At some point, I shared my experience, and I told her what had happened inside of me as I was holding space for her, and I started to share, you know, my own relationship with having taken, you know, having, you know, manipulated, used people, hidden the truth, lied, seduced, etc. And of course, like, the place of fear and lack that all those behaviors come out of. Interesting, we were talking kingship and generosity,
earlier, yeah,
abundance, and this is like the complete opposite of being in a lack, where you need to get something in the shadows without admitting it.
right.
And the thing that I remember telling her that I want to share is that, of course, I remember the things that happened to me, but the things that happened through me are have been the hardest ones to accept and to grieve.
Like what? If you don't mind sharing, if that makes sense.
The easy one to admit to is pretense and, you know, falseness, to fake smiles and so forth, and to be people pleasing and such. And, you know, that causes a great deal of confusion, but that is still rather benevolent. You know, it's not malevolent.
Right. Pretense that just gets you to look better.
Yeah, but the difficult one is to have disregarded other people's feelings, to completely disregard them, and to have chosen, I'm looking for the words here, to have chosen to use them. Because I remember my moments of perpetration, which were never acts of egregious violence.
Yeah, not assault in the purest sense of the word.
No, not assault, but still, and this is where it's really interesting to talk about, is there is a forcefulness There is a, like, I will get my way, and I might apply a little bit of pressure here or a little bit of neglect there, and I will use these things to guide you and your fearful psyche into doing my will.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes. And so in in a way, what I'm interpreting this as is your lack of sovereignty causes you to want to use other people's in order to meet your needs. And so there's if you were the king, you don't need to manipulate people.
Right.
People who will come, and there's the manipulation is actually it's an antithesis to a nervous system and a personality that's fully that is a fully grown and mature self-esteem.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to manipulate people. If people don't want to, that's like, why would you do that?
And yeah, but I think like this is another interesting thing, is that from the world of a perpetrator or the world of a manipulator is a world in which no one loves them.
Right.
They have never, experienced being loved for who they are.
Right.
And
yes.
known that their being, their expression of self authentically is something that will be embraced,
received,
reflected, celebrated, admired, etc. So this is one of the interesting things that have been clarifying in my mind, is that I feel like as I grow into sovereignty and responsibility and such. By the way, I remember reading your posts about self-responsibility just a few months ago and being in complete despair of this is impossible. It feels like I'm being asked to do something impossible. But I want to.
Now?
No, not now. Now it feels possible now. Not always easy, not always possible. Also, sometimes I fall into self-pity and all of it. I choose that. But what I want to say is that it's about desires, and about like the desire to be taken care of, for example, or the desire for reassurance, which is a desire that I've had all my life. And all my life I didn't want it because that's bad. It makes me a child. If I need reassurance, then I'm not mature. And what I realize now is that I kept looking for reassurance anyway.
Right, because what resist persists, as they say.
And in the ways that I would try to find reassurance, because I didn't allow myself to express it on the level, I had to go into the shadows.
Yeah, it came in sideways.
Yeah, and I would begin to manipulate, and I would begin to try to impress or try to convince or say the thing to elicit the reaction that makes me feel that I'm okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean, so I have to go in just a moment, just so you know.
To consolidate this one is not that the desires change, is the needs don't change. I am as needy as I ever have been, except that I'm more honest about it, and I find people who are willing to meet my needs with consent.
That's authenticity, and that's consent. You're more authentic about your neediness or your needs, which is not necessarily needy. You find the right person who's like, I'm a hell yes to this.
Yeah.
And it allows you to become more interdependent and less codependent. So if interdependency is full consent meaning that you're fully in charge of you're a fully consenting adult without the little child, as much as possible, without the little child allowing you to manipulate. If you're fully consenting, then that's interdependence. And if you're not fully consenting, or if you're not consenting at all, or you're not engaging in a way that's fully consensual, then that would be codependency. That's one way to look at it, or one way to kind of gauge yourself. Where am I on the codependent to interdependent level? Because depending on others is not really a choice. We're social creatures. That's how we know that we're related. Yeah. Because we need each other, and that creates these ties that bind us together, that know, like, hey, this brother's my friend. We're in this together, brother.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know we're in this together? Well, it's because if you ask for something, the other brother will show up, or they ask for something, you're like, yeah, I love you, I want to show up for you.
Mhm.
And it's not a transaction, it's just a feeling that arises from the desire to connect more.
Mhm. Mhm.